and 5 Caucasians. We represent a new movement, a race without a color, you know what I'm saying? The hip-hop culture.
Young black teenagers, New York City, active since 1989. Hip-hop and black culture is the most imitated culture to ever exist and over time has been attempted by many. But nothing compares to the attempt back in the late 80s, early 90s by a group of white rappers who ineptly gave it a go and failed mightily doing so. In hindsight, it was one of the worst ideas in hip-hop where even though interesting, it never came together as hoped and their message was quickly brushed over because of what they looked like versus what they stood for. White rappers pushing that color shouldn't exist more than relating to cultural experiences. As white teenagers that allegedly grew up in and around poverty, they felt they should be accepted or at least heard in the hip-hop space. Hip-hop in the 80s and early 90s was a budding form of art quickly climbing in popularity and influence, so no matter your skin color or ethnicity, you were affected in some way, especially the youth of that time. Most wanted to sing along and dance to it, but 4 white rappers decided to push their being influenced to the limit and name themselves, of all things, young black teenagers. The name in itself was and is an attention grab right away, leading into a feeling about them partially shared by the black community and mostly confusion by everyone else. Black culture and the minority will always feel it the most when they aren't allowed to have something great of their own, not be owned or appropriated by the majority culture because it takes away opportunity and oftentimes misrepresents the agenda and the struggle of being black on planet Earth. They feel it can easily be misconstrued who the creators actually were over time if it's allowed to be borrowed or completely owned by those that can't possibly share that struggle. When the young black teenagers hit the scene, they were immediately hit with the tag of stereotyping the young black experience, not only by their name, but their use of the N-word in interviews, ironically to explain how it shouldn't have the power it does, and by song titles like Tap the Bottle, a song about the promotion of drinking 40-ounce beer. Proud to be black about being judged for their hair texture and sagging pants, and maybe the worst of all time, Daddy called me nigga cause I like to rhyme, with the first 4 words repeated throughout the hook. These songs never really hit the mainstream market as hoped. Their relationship to young black culture was not accepted, and for these reasons, their growth was stunted. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to Marlon Bellamy for this amazing request. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Young Black Teenagers were a late 80s, early 90s rap group featuring 5 white rappers and DJs: Adam Firstborn Wiener, Ron Cameron Winge, Rodney A.T.A. Rivera, Tommy Never, and Scott Lalassi aka DJ Scribble from different parts of Long Island, Brooklyn, and Queens, New York. Growing up in and around hip-hop culture, they found a space they didn't feel out of place, as hip-hop was created for the outplaced youth in America, so they fit right in. Public Enemy would get wind of them along with a rapper called Busta Rhymes, who they'd mentor along with each of their crews and help nurture their hip-hop talents. When it came time to finding a name for them, Chuck D, Public Enemy, and the Bomb Squad had 2 group names on a board: Young Black Teenagers and Leaders of the New School. Legend has it that both crews wanted the name Leaders of the New School, so had to battle for it, with the crew that came up with the best diss to the old school winning the name, and the losers receiving Young Black Teenagers. Busta Rhymes and his crew won, leading to Cameron and crew representing one of the worst decisions in hip-hop. Stunt number 1, your name is everything. As visual creatures, we as humans first take notice to the name and appearance of anything, including other humans. So what you look like and what you go by has and will always be the 2 most important characteristics that determine the direction relationships can go based on those 2 things. Who you are can be misunderstood or never given a chance to be learned if those 2 aren't accepted. In hip-hop, name and appearance can make or break a career right at the doorstep. The group Young Black Teenagers were doomed from the start, having to call themselves a name that for obvious reasons could never truly represent who they were as white young men. They lost the battle for the name and lost the eventual war of having to explain themselves at every turn about why they would call themselves that when none of them were in fact black, with the name contradiction completely overshadowing their music. Them losing the battle for leaders of the new school made them losers from the get-go, and that never washed away. It didn't completely stop them from getting on though, as Public Enemy producer Hank Shockley signed them to his label Soul, ironically again, distributed by MCA Records. They released their debut album in 1991 featuring their songs Proud to Be Black, Loud and Hard to Hit, and Daddy Called Me Nigga. Loud and Hard to Hit would be their only charting song on the album, as the album itself failed to chart at all, as not too many could get past their name and their version of fighting for black culture. They learned very early that because you grew up around poverty and black culture, it doesn't make you black, and the experience of being black can never be shared by an outsider, no matter how close you are to it. Their message was seen as a way to integrate and eventually profit off black culture instead of a way to abolish the stereotypes only given to black people. No one ever got past their name, and although their music wasn't bad, it halted them growing in any direction. Stunt number 2, their message misunderstood. When the Beastie Boys came out in the mid-80s, they received backlash for their own appropriation of hip-hop and rap culture, but because they weren't marketed as a hip-hop group, more than an alternative punk band, and wasn't fighting to be seen as rappers or giving the illusion that they understood the black plight, they got a pass per se. For the most part, they simply added rapping to their act, even though many saw that as enough to justify the pockets of backlash they did receive. But Young Black Teenagers were the exact opposite. They came out and attempted to completely immerse themselves in black culture, and even attempted to be the spokespeople for the black struggle, with stereotypes, racism, and the use of the N-word, and lack of opportunity based on skin color. In a 90s interview, Cameron would attempt to explain that color shouldn't be seen as black and white, more than the experiences a group of people go through together. What he failed to realize is one group had to go through those things and didn't have the plan B of simply getting a haircut and shaving if the black experience got too much to deal with. Blacks for the most part didn't have opportunities to switch to being white like a white person in black culture could, and had to be really smart, rap, play sports, or sell drugs to get the opportunity a white kid could get by simply being born a white kid. This made their message futile and unaccepted by the masses, where the music wasn't good enough to trump it. Vanilla Ice, Snow, Eminem, Beastie Boys, and more benefited from not having a message that attempted to share the black plight, or having no message at all in Vanilla Ice's case, just being trash and a complete marketing scheme that, thank God, went wrong, crashed, and burned. The Young Black Teenagers had their heart in the right place but weren't charismatic enough, was way ahead of a time their message could be heard by enough people without social media, and weren't talented enough to have a message so strong that forced you to pick a side. Stunt number 3, the music. Lastly, Young Black Teenagers failed where other white artists in hip-hop and rap cultures saw success through the music. Reggae artist Snow at least had the hit Informer, backed by MC Shan and reggae culture. The Beastie Boys multiple hits and backed by Def Jam and Russell Simmons, and Eminem multiple hits, unique talent, and backed by Dr. Dre and later 50 Cent. YBT, as they began calling themselves, had none of that. They didn't have a hit song and weren't backed by anyone besides Public Enemy initially, who also slowly distanced themselves from the mistake they share a part in creating. If the music was good, YBT would have transcended their terrible name and message into at least a hit or two, or maybe a mildly successful few albums. After their debut flopped, their 1993 album 2 years later did as well, although charted at 156 on the Billboard 200, now that MCA took over distribution. Their lead single, Tap the Bottle, was a catchy tune about drinking 40s, even though members in the group later admitted they never even liked the taste of beer. It's their only song that charted at all on the Billboard 200 and went platinum in New Zealand. And art, talent trumps everything, but YBT just weren't talented enough to make music that transcended the abuse of stereotypes and the spreading of the message black culture didn't need help in telling themselves. All in all, young black teenagers, like mentioned, never had a chance. With a different name, who knows how far they could have gone, but all involved agreed to this horrendous idea and thought it could be explained away as just some white guys trying to help the cause, but came off offensive, corny, and much before its time. Their message wasn't 100% flawed, but everything else about them was, and for that and these reasons, their growth was stunted. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.